Story time with Mr. Lamada. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Lamada, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't live lonely, won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to be hearing story time with Mr. Lamada. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Lamada, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't live lonely, won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to be hearing.
Good morning and welcome to Storytime. Thank you for joining me. Happy Thursday to you wherever you are today. Thank you so much for joining us. Is it good evening if you're all the way out east? Or good afternoon if you're somewhere in the Midwest? And of course, good morning right here in Oakland and the West Coast. Good morning to you. Welcome to Storytime. Thank you so much for joining me today. And as you know, I am joined by an amazing guest today, OLAOLU OgUNYEMI. He will be joining us very shortly. He will be right here with us on Storytime and of course doing the reading for us today. So I hope you're excited as I am. Yes, indeed, a wonderful book awaits us. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please let me know where you're joining in from and who is joining in with you. And of course, Storytime is for everybody, the young and the young at heart. So you are very welcome to Storytime. If it's your first time joining us, welcome, and I hope you feel the warmth of this wonderful community that we have together. Thank you so much for being here. Good morning to you and welcome. Let us see who is with us, joining us this morning and ready to enjoy a wonderful story and of course a wonderful conversation with our guests. Thank you so much for joining us today. Amanda West, how are you doing today out in Illinois? And of course joining in with the lovely Sarah and Nathan. Thank you so much for joining us today. Always a pleasure having you here and of course hearing from you. I love that. Thank you so much for being here. Good morning to you, Amanda, Wes, Sarah, and Nathan in sunny Illinois. Well, enjoy it. Thank you so much for sharing. Good morning to you, Jen Veda. How are you doing? Yes, indeed. Good to see you here as always, Jen. I hope your summer break is going well and I hope to see you at the school very soon. Yes, indeed, librarian extraordinaire, Jen Veda. Good morning to you. Good morning to you, Chriselle, Rocco, and Clay. And of course, great-grandpa June. And you're saying it is very sunny out in Long Beach. Well, thank you for joining us. Rocco and Clay want to know your favorite not Earth planet. Oh, good question. I will be coming back to that one for sure. Great Grandpa June, Chriselle, Rocco, and Clay. Good morning to you out in LBC. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to you. Jen Veda, absolutely representing a Ride for a Reason. Please remember, Ride for a Reason happens every year. It is a wonderful ride, a wonderful fundraiser for public education. Ride starts right here in Oakland and goes all the way out to Sacramento. So please do look out for that one. And hopefully next year we can all participate. Thank you so much for joining us today. Good morning to you. Chriselle, one more time. I should have reread that. No, it's all good. Good morning to you out in Bothell, Tori, Gambo, and Liana. How are you doing today? And you say, hope everyone is having a fun day today. I am sure they are. And of course, we have our amazing guest today. Excited to have him with us. Thank you so much for joining in. Bree, how are you doing today? Joining us from Oceanside, California. Thank you so much for joining in. And you're joining in with Jacob, Breely and Eniola. Thank you so much for joining in, and I hope I got those names correctly. Please do send me the pronunciation, but thank you for joining us. Welcome to Story Time. Thank you so much for being here. Betty Graydon in Florida, how are you doing today? Yes, indeed. Thank you for being here. Sunshine State, thank you. Good morning to you, and welcome to Story Time. Happy Thursday to you. Tiffany Golden, how are you doing today? And of course, JC right here in Oakland. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the sun that we're having right here in Oakland. Thank you so much for being here. Now it is time to meet our guest for today, a very special guest indeed. And let us welcome, please, OLAOLU. Yes. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I'm so excited to be here with you, Mr. Lamata, and with all of you today. Good morning. Hello. How are you, dear?
Awesome. Where are you joining us from today?
I am also joining from Oceanside, California, where it is indeed sunny in Oceanside, California.
Awesome. So a little bit about who is Eniola, who is Breely, who are those people?
Well, those strangers happen to be the people I live with. Bria happens to be my wife. Briley is my oldest daughter. Then you have Jacob is my son. And then Eniola is 2. She's going on 32, but that is my youngest daughter.
Awesome. Well, you have this wonderful book for us.
Yes, sir.
From the Shadow. Oh, please just tell us a little bit about it before you get into the reading. And of course, we'll let you read so everybody can enjoy it out there.
Absolutely. So Crow from the Shadow is my first book in the Parent-Child Connect series. And first of all, thank you so much for supporting Mr. Lamata.
No, absolutely.
So the Parent-Child Connect series is just a series that we've created that we just use to connect parents, teachers, and mentors with children, give them an opportunity to sit down with their children, just read a fun story. So Crow from the Shadow is the first of those stories, as I've alluded to before. And it's a great opportunity for parents to just teach their children a valuable lesson. And you'll see at the end that only one person can determine your destiny. And that one person is going to be revealed at the end of the story.
Awesome. Well, I love it. I love the book, read it over and over, and definitely one that I will be coming back to many, many times. And everybody watching out there, librarians, hint, Jen Veda, this book belongs somewhere. Thank you so much for joining me. But also, I just, I'll let you read, and everybody that is joining in, please stick around after the reading because we will be having a conversation, lots and lots to talk about in this great book. And of course, this wonderful gentleman that is with us today. So please join us. For now, all yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lamata. As we've already said, the title of the book is Crow from the Shadow, written by OLAOLU OgUNYEMI, illustrated by my brother, Joshua OgUNYEMI. Crow from the Shadow. Hi, I'm Crow. Crow from the Shadow. The shadow is a person, or maybe a thing, or a place. The shadow tells me who to be, how to go, and where to stay. I wear all black, although my favorite color is blue. Black cap, black shades. Yep, that's what the shadow tells me to do. School is easy. I can always get an A. But why would I do that? That's not the shadow's way. I love sunsets on the beach while I enjoy a nice book to read. But the shadow said reading is boring. So that hobby is not for me. We love sunsets in San Diego. I love flying like the wind while I chat with my friends. But the shadow said I'm a loner. So I just play pretend. I really love sports. Basketball is what I love to play. But the shadow said, don't play sports. So I just sleep all day. I had a dream that I decided to protect and serve. But the shadow told me I would never overcome life's hills and curves. I am an amazing architect. I built an Eiffel Tower with toothpicks. But the shadow told me that I could only dig a ditch. I have climbed a mountain and I have sped around curves. I have greeted many friends and I have read hundreds of words. I have great manners and I am excellent at school. Why should I listen to the shadow when the shadow tells untruths? I can be a success and even choose a mate. Who gave the shadow the power to control my fate? I will move forward and become all that I can be. Only one can determine my future. That one is me. The end. And then we have some cool facts about crows that you may not know. So stick around and maybe we'll tell you some. And then for those parents, teachers, and mentors out there, we go into some questions that allows you to continue the conversation with your people, your young people. All right, Mr. Lamada, back to you.
Awesome. No, I love that. I love that. So, like that question you had asked at the beginning, who is that person that has the power? Who is it?
That one person is me. It's you. We have the power to control our own destiny. We cannot ever give that power to someone else. I remember one child told me, they said, I can do whatever I want. I can do it. No matter what anyone says, I can do whatever I put my mind to. And then the mom asked, she said, hey, is there anybody that can stop you? And he thought for a while and he looked at his mom. He said, my parents. But guess what? Not even your parents can stop you from being what you're truly meant to be.
They will direct. They will direct.
Oh, yes, they will direct the guy.
Oh, yeah. I grew up with a tough mom, so definitely can relate. I saw that your big sister was on, Latoya. So I was just wondering, I have a question for you, Latoya. Please tell us those big secrets. OLAOLU, is he a troublesome younger brother?
Oh, well, I see my mom is on too. So listen, there's no, hey, you guys realize this is a public forum.
Oh, love it. No, I love it that family joined in too. So talking about family, this book, which of your parents or which of your family members do you see the most, or do you think had the most influence on how Crow from the Shadow came out?
So as I look at it, I if I were to talk about my parents, so my mom, when she read to us, she was the most interactive reader that I think I've ever seen in my life. She does an excellent job, and she has done an excellent job of just, sitting down with us, and she will read, and she loves what she does. Yeah. And then my dad he's the one that comes to us with the profound messages. Like, no matter where you're from, obviously you see my name. He came from Nigeria. My dad, he said that no matter where you're from, no matter where you've been or what you've done, you have the power to determine your own future. So I would say it's a great mixture of both of them.
That's awesome. No, that's great. And then why crow? Why not pigeon? Why not duck?
So I like the crow character, and that's why I included some cool facts inside the book about crows. Yeah, because the crow is one character, one animal that a lot of people really don't they don't too much care for. The crow is one thing that everybody, they always just have negative things to say about the crow. So everything about the crow is already determined. I mean, how many people can just honestly say they know what a baby crow looks like? I didn't. I mean, it could be the cutest thing in the world, but the only thing we know about a crow is that maybe he goes through our trash. Maybe we should leave our trash open. So, so it's just an awesome opportunity just to know that that the crow is that character that sometimes maybe we can relate to, and knowing that it's a character that maybe somebody's told that maybe you will do nothing but tear people's trash.
Right, like we need to learn more about the crow.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, also, I mean, it seems like for you, family is huge, like just some of the interactions that you're having here, and just from talking to you and, like just reading about you too, that seems like it's a central part of your life. So how was it working with your brother doing this project that is meant to go out in the world versus just interacting regularly? So how was it working with your brother?
So he is a very talented individual, Joshua. I mean, unbelievable. He has so much talent from graphic design to illustration. And I'll tell you, from that perspective, it was a lot of fun because I know if I bring it to him, he's able to just bring my idea to light. Now, on the other side of it, he's still family. And just like LaToya said, I love to speak my mind. So there was times when I got frustrated because, I'm like, hey, we need it now. We need to do it now.
Yeah.
And Joshua maybe was not moving in the now. But he's always moved at his own speed. And I do appreciate his hard work that he put in because he really brought the book to life. It's a little, as you look at the cover, it's a little bit darker than what you would expect for a children's book. And I fully recognize and appreciate that. But as you can see throughout the story, it begins to lighten up as Crow realizes that he's coming from the shadow into learning himself, learning more about himself. So he's more enlightening. He's becoming more enlightening, and thus the pictures are brightening up throughout the story.
So that's something that I never noticed until you told me when we talked initially, and I was like, oh yeah, and then I noticed it as I was reading through. So that's something that you want to pay attention to. Do you just want to say that one more time for those that are listening outside, and why that change in the light?
Correct. Yeah. So it starts off as you can see the cover. We look at the cover and it's fairly dark, and Crow has on a hood. He's looking down. There's two streets behind him. If there's Shadow Lane going this way, and then there's Destiny Court going towards the sun. So we're looking at it, and even though the sun is rising, it's still not really a bright, vibrant cover. But as you continue to flip throughout the book, I mean, it starts off really dark. I mean, there's only one light here, right? And we're saying, oh, I'm Crow, and he's not even in that light, right? Because he's just really, if you will, sulking in the fact that he is being told everything to do by the shadow. Yeah. But then you look towards the end of the book as you turn maybe even to the last page when he says, I can be a success.
Let me just do this.
Absolutely. He says, I could be a success and even choose a mate. And now you can see how bright and vibrant these colors are. You can see how bright the sunshine is. I mean, he's shining the light now on his shadow. Yeah. And what that represents is that he now has identified the shadow is there. He now knows what the shadow is trying to do. And now he's just reflecting his light on the shadow to tell him, hey, shadow, I now have control of my own life and my own destiny. So that's how the transition goes. Yeah.
And then, you see this message in there, empowering for the young people listening out there, and for the adults. We always need a reminder too, just because there are things, bumps in the roads, like we said, in the intro to the book. Like there's stuff that is strewn all over our path. But then, how do we go over those hurdles? Some will hold us back a little bit. Some will hit us a lot harder than others. So to hear your message in there, and I think bring it to young people at this point is just so important, and then ties into other things that you do. I know that you do teen mentorship. So how did you come to that, and why is that important to you?
So I'll start with the reason I like this book first is because before I feel like we could talk about finances and we could talk about anything else, any other topic that we have with our children, we first have to teach them to believe in themselves. And that's one thing that I started off with the teens that I mentor. is I tell them that you have to believe in yourself. You have to understand.
That one makes me laugh. I'm listening.
Listen, I'm just looking at it. That's my oldest brother, Dr. Clement Oganyemi, that's telling me to preach. So I won't preach. But that's the message that I convey to the teens when I sit down and talk to them, is that, hey, you control your own destiny, and that you just have to believe in yourself. And once you believe in yourself, then the sky is the limit for you.
Limit for sure. And what settings do you work with these teens with?
Correct. So I work in my local church, which is Liberty Temple Worship Center in San Diego. And it's been a blast. I mean, Pastor Mike gave me the ability to work with them. And he gave me the left and right lateral limits to just have opportunity to sit down and just express myself and really just learn from them, and just to be with them. And I just love it. I really appreciate the opportunity he gave.
Yeah.
And then I took that opportunity, and any other the teens that they introduced me to, and then through our family foundation, it's just a lot of things that we're able to do to connect with teenagers, because I believe that's just we always say the children of the future, but the children are the now. I'm not that old myself, but the children are the now.
And you know, like, what do you learn from them? You know, like I'm sure there's that imparting that is coming from you to them, but what are you learning from them? What is one thing you say, like, oh yeah, you know, like every time I feel like I'm learning this from them?
Right. So the first thing I'll say is I have to learn to watch what I say. I know my sister said I don't watch what I say, but I do. I have to learn, because one example is one teen said, hey, well, Lou said that we could do this and that. And the mom was telling me about it. I was like,
in fairness to your sister, she did say you speak your mind.
Yes. We stretch it a little bit. I do speak my mind somewhat. But I mean, that's one thing I learned from them, you know. And the other thing is just to learn the innocence and the energy, and just really, when you really think about teens and just children in general, that a lot of them just do things and they do it wholeheartedly. You know, my son, I was actually on a trampoline. Funny story. I was on a trampoline with my oldest daughter, and we were out there practicing flips, you know, doing a front flip. And I'll tell you, I've never done a front flip in my life. Surprise, Briley, I never had. But, you know, we're out there, and I actually landed a front flip, and she's hyping me up so much. I said, you know what? I should try a backflip, right? Yeah. And just because of that same energy and passion, I was feeding off of it. I'll tell you, I'm glad the ambulance wasn't called. I tried to do a backflip, and I landed on my head. Oh. So here's the story. You'll make sure you're extremely careful when you're on a trampoline. You don't want to be like me and hit your head on the trampoline. Right. It does not feel good. So I think that's one of the biggest things, just the innocence and the humility and the ability to just love others. Those are the kind of things I just learned from the youth.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you know, like I work with, I've had first and second grade, and I learn so much from them every single time. Even on this community, they just certain things that will be mentioned. I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah, I will take that on board. So absolutely, we're always learning. And yeah, I definitely certain students come to mind right now. But just before, you know, I go into my next question, there is something here from Chriselle in Long Beach. And, you know, she's just saying, it felt, as you were reading, it felt like shadow was a metaphor for depression. And I think it would be a good his book for, you know, young people who struggle with mental issues, and which is an important topic. I mean, seen in the news, we talk about, and I feel like even at school, we do things like, oh, maybe, you know, caring school community or this, but I feel like we need to be diving deeper into this so we can understand it. I don't know what you think about your book being.
Oh, absolutely. And I've heard that, I've gotten that feedback before. So I intentionally left the shadow. I didn't define what the shadow was, because the idea behind it is I wanted children, I wanted parents, whoever, I want them to identify the shadow as whatever that may be for them. Depression has been one. Some has been just their last name, even, you know, some has been where they're from. One told me, he was 7 years old. He told me it's the voices in my head that tell me things I know I shouldn't do, but I do anyway. It was even one parent that told me, she said, you know, I realize that I am the shadow for my children. So it's those kind of things. Yes, I 100% agree that the shadow could be a perfect metaphor for depression. I believe that, once we realize that the first step is just recognizing that shadow exists, and then finding ways to sit down with our children and really just have an open conversation with them. Because once we start off and we ask the questions, and like I said, we have the continue the conversation questions in the back.
Right.
And one of the things, there's two questions. The first question is, how would you describe Crow? And then the second question is, how would you describe the shadow? And that's just an opportunity for the child to really convey, what is that? What is that shadow for me in my life? So thank you so much, Chriselle, for your input. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and Chriselle, I know that Chriselle is a big proponent, pushing, make sure that people try to understand this. And I appreciate that, Chriselle, too, for sure. Thanks. And then Harmony Beth had she mentions there too, like we need to recognize that wherever there's light, there's also a shadow, and we need to be powerfully determined to find that light. And as I was reading that, I was thinking, like, we do fall too, and it's not a perfect smooth path.
Right.
So how do you think your book highlights that? Or like there's this happy ending that we're looking to, or that is there, but also how do we recognize those steps in between? And the failure, if I could call it that, like that, those, the stumbles that may come with the process.
First of all, Harmony, that is a beautiful, beautiful message. I mean, wow. Where there's light, there's also a shadow. I mean, that's just a beautiful message. And then from as you were talking, you said something. You said that there's potential failures, and the way I view failures just in life in general, and I'll teach the same thing to my children, is that it's not really a failure or a loss. It's more so a lesson that you're learning. So, and that's the way we just had to envision these things, is that we are learning from every experience. We're learning something from it. So yes, there's going to be obstacles. Yes, there's going to be times where the shadow may even be myself, my own self-doubt and those kind of things, trying to overpower it with positivity. And it just, in theory, that seems like it'll work, but in reality, maybe not the most practical advice. But the main thing is, like Harmony said, I mean, we just have to search for that light, whatever that light may be. Some may say looking at the glass half full, vice half empty. Searching for that light and just celebrating those small wins every single day, every opportunity you get. Just celebrate the small wins.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. But then we have Parent-Child Connect. What is Parent-Child Connect, and where did that idea come from?
Right. So what I realized as we were coming towards that theme. Is that there's a lot of influences out there, right? So I even looked at my own phone. I was looking at some of the applications that I have on my phone, and I think I counted about 20 applications that are pulling at my time and influencing me in some way. And then I realized that not only is there something pulling on me every day, there's influences that are pulling, good and bad, that are pulling on my children as well. And so the idea behind Parent-Child Connect is that we either collaborate or we combat some of those influences that are constantly pulling on our children as we go about. So it's just bringing that mentorship, bringing those sessions back into the home to where we sort of sit down and we actually sit kneecap to kneecap, and it doesn't have to be an awkward conversation. I think for me personally, it was times where if I'm trying to talk, I have two daughters, and and as I sit down and try to talk to them, sometimes I was like, man, this may be tough. It may be a tough topic to tackle, but it's like, well, maybe it's not as tough. Maybe just sit down and have a natural conversation. Maybe there's a book that can introduce them, maybe. So that's where Parent-Child Connect was birthed from. It's just that time to sit down with the child and just talk and really just communicate and share a moment, a memorable moment with each other.
And how has that vision, from the time you started Parent-Child Connect to now, how successful do you feel it's been? And also, like at this point when you reassess, how is that vision going? Have you had to change, or
Yeah. So firstly, in my home, I have to look at that, and I can tell you, my wife Bria, she does it all the time. Well, when it's time for bedtime, I don't know why, and maybe it's just bedtime story time. I don't know what it is, but that's the time where it's almost like silly time for us. It's like, hey, and my wife, she'll be standing there like, it's getting later and later. It's time for bed, but it's just that time I don't know why we just don't do it throughout the day, but it's that time that we just feel like we just connect more and we just sit there and it's just that time. So I think that's sharing in my own home, first of all, that time to connect. And then I've been getting feedback from numerous parents that, they sat down, even some that sat down with their child was graduating high school. They had a child that was like going to med school and wanted to go to law school. And they all sat down together and they read this book. And I couldn't believe the impact that they had. And they just they sort of sat down and they were like, yeah, this is it at this time in our lives, as one is studying for the bar, as one is waiting to be accepted in certain schools. It really meant a lot to her and her family. So, to me, as long as it helps one, that's all it takes. But I've gotten a lot of feedback over the years. So I really.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, just to think children's books are they're just amazing because the messages are valid throughout for all of us. And as you are talking there, you mentioned your, like that family that read with people at different times in their lives. But it also reminded me of, say, for example, here with Amanda and baby Bia in Seattle, joining in with grandma and grandpa, and then also seeing how like these stories at the end, we're all enjoying them together. And so it just kind of reminded me of that. And just for everybody that is joining in right now, hopefully nobody was on too much African time, but you're here. So we're happy. You're joining me today with OLAOLU OgUNYEMI, the author of Crow from the Shadow. And we just read it. And so please go back to this and see it and also find it where you buy your books. And of course, he is here talking a little bit more about his work and this amazing book. So the other thing I wanted to also touch on was you wear many hats. You've mentioned being a youth mentor at church. You mentioned, in talking to me, you mentioned you're with the Marines, and you're also, you're leading people there too. And then you're an author. And I remember having a conversation with Amanda, who parent here too, is how do you maintain the balance?
And first of all, Amanda, that's amazing because that's another point of this is just creating memorable experiences with children. And I know every experience that I've had with my grandparents, I cherish for dear life. You're lucky today, Mr. Lamont. I didn't wear my hat, and my family knows the hat I'm talking about. It's actually on a flyer. But I absolutely love a hat that my grandfather has, and he had, and it's just one of those things you just cherish those moments. So thank you so much for joining us, Amanda. But now I sidetracked myself.
No, it's so good. This is what it's about. That's
the original question
you wear.
Right.
It's balance.
It's just one thing to, I won't pretend that I'm perfect at it. There's times when I just have to, when I arrive home, I have to look at my wife and really just sort of look at her expression, understand her body language, right? If she's smiling but her foot is tapping, maybe I've spent, way too many hours investing in the parent-child connect, or maybe just trying to understand like the passion behind it, especially when you're starting off something brand new. You're pouring a lot of passion into it. You're pouring a lot of energy and time. So a lot of times it's just like trying to make sure that you maintain that work-life balance. And what I believe it is really you have to schedule it. All right? I believe there's a schedule for things. I schedule 6 to 8 hours, leaning more towards the 8 hours of sleep every single night. I do not believe
that's impressive.
Yeah, I really believe sleep is an important part of your physical, mental, and emotional state, and spiritual, for that matter. I just believe that it's just so important. Yeah. But I think that's really what it's all about. I mean, I'm not perfect at it, and yes, I'm a Marine officer, and yes, I can create the best schedule in the world, but unfortunately, human beings just don't operate the best way. When you look at with children, my 2-year-old, Is Eola, as you see, my 2-year-old, she's not going to really respond to my schedule when I say, okay, you need to do this at this time, this at this time. No, she's not going to respond to that. So right. You do your best to schedule things. You do your best to do what you have to do. But what I would recommend to anybody is when that moment presents itself, whatever that moment may be, live in that moment. Like I said, we're on a trampoline. I try to do backflips, try to do front flips. I think those are memorable experiences. I'm sure my oldest daughter would tell you that she was scared. She probably thought she'd have to call the ambulance because she probably heard the pop in my neck, and I still have to stretch it out a little bit. But it's just living in those moments. I think that's really the most important part.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And, it's really an inspiration. It's just think of all those things that you're able to balance. How important has been family in finding that balance? I mean, we're talking here, lucky enough to, to have support systems. And, I have my friends that I lean on. I have, people in this community that have become more than just, more than just people that we read stories with. They've become people that are supports. And so for you, how important has family been throughout this whole process?
Right. So I'll start from when I was young. I mean, we have a fairly big family. I'm the fifth of 6 children, and we literally talk every single day. If one of us is missing for too long, we'll reach out to each other. So it's the biggest. Yeah. It's that support system. That's that family that I came from that I just want to see replicated across whatever the family may look like. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a mom and dad, and whatever the family may look like for you and your individual.
Yeah,
home.
right.
I believe that's just really important because that support system, the biggest coaches, the biggest mentors, my biggest critics, and my biggest fans are all my family. I told you a story about my wife before we started talking. I mean, sometimes it's like that they are the biggest critics, and you have to stop and think, like, man. Okay, I have to really step my game up. There's been a time I've read a story to one of my children, and they just sort of look at it, and I'm like, oh, well, I only spent a week writing that, and really paying a lot of attention to it. Yeah, but that's just what it to me. That's huge. Having that support system, or even creating that environment of just whatever that family may be for you. If it's like you mentioned, your friends, whatever that family is for you, just having them, bringing them together, and just letting them be naturally who they are in your life. I think that's what the most important thing is for me.
That's beautiful. I love it. And, really, which is one of the things that I find, the community, if you can lean on your families, lean on your communities, and hopefully we're building communities that come together and we check in on each other, even if it's just a simple text that feels like, oh, just checking in. How are you doing today? Hopefully we're able to do that, or have people in our lives that can do that. And so such a powerful message. Thank you. And then at what point did you feel that Crow from the Shadow was ready for the world?
So that's a great question. Oh, Mr. Lamati, you're challenging me today. Let me straighten myself up. All right. So what point did I think it was ready for the world? I think it was when I was talking to an individual about some things that was going on. And this is actually a grown man, some things that were going on in his life. And I realized that there was a lot. He had a heavy plate, heavy burden on him. And I think I started really just started thinking about, wait a minute, he's having this issue going on, but we all, to include children, have all kinds of issues and all kinds of challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. And like I said, when I started looking at the other stories I had lined up, and I was starting to think, sort of brainstorming with Joshua, the illustrator, my brother. And as we were brainstorming and started to think through it, I was like, there's no way that I can really introduce any of these other topics. And there's some stories that are going to be sort of funny, but there's no way I can really introduce these other topics if this person's in a place in their life, which we all are a lot of times, where there's just numerous challenges flying at us left and right, because I can read to escape, but when I come back from that escape, my problem is still there, right? So I have to learn to face that problem. So that's insert Crow from the Shadow. That was why it's the first one. And some may argue like, well, I don't know if I would go with the first one, but that was definitely the first one for that reason. It's just I just wanted to make sure that, we get that message out there that says, you know what, you control your destiny. There's nothing that could stop you reaching who you really want to be.
Yeah. You mentioned the first one. My next question was going to be, is there more to come from OLAOLU? But
absolutely. So we're working on a lot of different projects. It's just been a blessing. I mean, I've met great people like Laura Atkins and Beth Bacon in the community, and it's just these people that are constant, that I've been constantly meeting, and they've been introducing me to new people, and so I've had the opportunity just to connect with other people that we're gonna have some new projects coming out probably towards the fall time. So yes, there are going to be a lot more products coming out. So this isn't a one and done. I think maybe I'll just consider myself I don't know, Shaq and Kobe, or I don't know, whoever it be. That we could just insert whatever champion. Tom Brady. Maybe some Tom Brady fans out there. I could be Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, whoever you want me. Absolutely.
That's awesome. And are you still going to be working with your brother?
Absolutely, yeah. So, and again, he's very, very talented. I couldn't imagine I'm not bringing it to him. Just yesterday, I was on the phone, just FaceTiming him, and just picking his brain. Like I said, he's one of a 1,000-pound brain, and I never really know what that metaphor means. But I hear people saying it. I just assume that means he's really, really smart. And the way that he's able to just bring your ideas to life and just he listens very well. And I think that's really the key thing that he brings to the table. He's an excellent listener, and then he just helps to bring your ideas to life. So I just really, really appreciate it. And yes, we definitely will be collaborating, and then there's some others that we'll be collaborating with as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, I just want to really appreciate you being here and sharing all that information with us. And I just wanted one more thing, and then we'll be letting you go. Well, two, actually. One is, what is your process? How do you go about it? Is it ideas that come first? Is it the writing that comes first? Like, are you a morning writer? Are you you said you got to try to sleep as long as you can, but are you a night owl and then sleep later? Or how do you do it? And then I'll come to the other question. I'll let you answer this one first.
Okay. I am a morning person. I get up every morning at 5 a.m, and that's just I get up that early. So some will say it's not even that early, but I get up that early so that way it's my time to be with myself. The first 2.5 hours of the day, it's just my time to be in my own world. Normally I spend the majority of that working out. But just in that time, sometimes I have music playing and sometimes there's no music. And so as I'm sitting in there and I'm just sort of allowing I just let my mind wander to wherever it wants to go. And it just wanders sometimes. And then sometimes when it's wandering, there's an idea that comes. And then as that idea comes, I'll pull out my phone immediately and I'll hit the record button. And that right then I start voice recording the idea. Even if nothing comes from it, I start voice recording and I start talking. I was about to say talking to myself. I guess technically I am talking to myself. So I start talking to myself and really just start like going through, sort of rehearsing the story in my mind, acting the story out, those kind of things. And then I take that from that phone and I may put it on paper and just sort of write the idea out. And then other times it was just driving. A lot of times I'll turn the music off when I'm driving and just again let my mind wander while I still pay attention to the road. That's a disclaimer. I don't want anybody. Yes, I let my mind wander, but I'm still using my turn signal.
Right.
But yes, that's really anytime I'm by myself that I use that. I try to use that time wisely, and it goes back to your other question about time management. If I'm alone if I'm alone, that's my perfect time to really just invest in parent-child connect or whatever other things going on.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then representation for you, what does it mean and why is it important?
Yes, represent. So I'll give you an example. I was thinking about this earlier as you were a teacher. I don't remember many male teachers at all in my school growing up. There were coaches for sure, and they were teachers. But for the most part, there were no male teachers. You didn't see people like you. And you definitely didn't see African-American males that are doing things like reading to their children and just investing time and doing those kind of things. So I believe that it is an extremely important thing, not only what you're doing here, but what you do in the classroom and just in general when we're talking about representation, because like people, there's power in seeing people that look like you do things that you aspire to do. And that's just one thing that I always say that I wholeheartedly believe it. As I look back at a lot of things that I said, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. The second I saw somebody that looked like me that actually did it, it just empowered me a little bit more. And I think that's just the power behind it. Just having that representation, having that person that's there, that's doing exactly, I mean, whatever that may be, just doing what you aspire to do. I think that's imperative.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And honestly, like I had that an experience. I think I mentioned to you when we were talking before, where I'd had many coaches and brilliant people, amazing people. But as soon as there was one time where I had, and I don't know if it was because I just felt like I could relate better to that person, and it was suddenly different. I had an African-American male that came in as my coach, and it just felt different. I just felt I could open up about things that before I was holding back. So which was super important. And I just couldn't, I had always talked about representation and why it's important. And it had never hit me the way it quite did when that moment happened. And, growing up in Zambia, everywhere you look around, people are like you or look like you. So you never really think about it much. But then when I moved out here and then had those experiences, now you're like, oh my goodness, yeah, this is important. And I could only imagine then, because that was made more real for me, for my students as well, thinking of how they're going through life and what they see, what they observe, what they're exposed to. And then, taking it as an opportunity to teach each other and learn from each other. So I absolutely appreciate that. You mentioned crow facts. What is your favorite one, or which one would you want to read from us from the book? Or,
I'll read. I mean, I can read all of them if you want me to, but I think my favorite fact, and I read an article about this actually, but my favorite fact in here is that crows have great memory and can remember your face. And you can look it up on your own time. But there's an actual article out there that's hilarious about a guy that was maybe, not minding his manners when he met a crow. And it was just actually pretty funny just to see that a crow, I mean, he started off just sort of throwing the rocks at one crow. And then two crows showed up and he's throwing rocks at, hey, shoot, go away. And then a multitude of crows show up and it's like, okay, yeah, maybe they actually know who I am, So I think that's pretty cool that a crow's memory is just that great. I think that's probably the funniest / coolest fact about him that at least that I can read about.
Yeah, no, I think as we, just that memory. Recently I was watching a documentary that, and it's a famous coach, soccer coach, and he had a stroke, you'd say, but then he was afraid that he would lose his memory. And in that moment, as I was watching, I was just thinking, you mentioned memory, and I was just thinking how he went about processing that, trying to write down things as soon as he was back, to himself. And so it was just one of those things where it's something that we take for granted. Oh, I remember this. Oh, I remember that. But then to think about it, and, even as we go on, there's Alzheimer's, there's all sorts of things that afflict us. And just thinking about how special those memories, if you're still able, you're still in a situation where you can definitely be remembering things and sharing them with your family and enjoying those moments. Absolutely do, right? So yeah, it's a good one. I didn't mean to go down that way, but it's just fine. Like it just brought up all these thoughts as you were talking.
Absolutely. Hey, you're fine. Hey, you let your mind wander. You never know. Now you may write a book.
Absolutely. And then Harmony Beth one more time was just saying, she gets to observe crows, and Alameda is really close to me. I go there quite a bit as well. So absolutely appreciate that. And then Ingrid was just, appreciating what you were talking about. And I think absolutely powerful. She's another, a member of our school community and a good friend of mine. And I think when she says that, I see it in action. I see her belief in it for sure.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much like anything as you're leaving, as you're parting with us today, just what's something that you'd like to share or people know, and where they can find you, where they can find your amazing book. Can they get you? Do you do author visits?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can contact me. You could just go to my website. That's parent-child-connect.com. You can go to my website and you can contact me through there. You can, anything that you want, just reach out to me. I've done virtual visits. I've done story time. Not as good as story time with Mr. Amada. Plug. I've done school visits. I've done several different things. I've done some podcasts, and so it's been a great experience thus far. And really, what I'm doing is I'm just trying to again spread the message. I'm more encouraged by being able to just spread the message and just encourage others than I am just trying to make a profit. I just. Like I was reading that. Thank you so much for your compliment, Amanda, because I do want to bring that energy and that liveliness into the stories and into the atmosphere. So that way you can take that same energy back home to your children or to the children that you mentor, that you may impact and you may influence. And you just take that same energy, you pour it into them, and we just make this world a better place as we grow and learn.
Right.
So
no, that's awesome. Thank you so much, OLAOLU. I really appreciate your message, and just the energy, like Amanda said, that you bring, and also the representation that you bring. It's so beautiful to see, like young Black men involved and doing things in the community. I really appreciate that. And I think the community out there, as you've seen, really appreciated it. And hopefully we'll see you again here on Storytime, please.
Absolutely.
And then everybody that is joining in, I've put out the comments in the comment section. You can find all Instagram, all the handles, Facebook, the website. So you can find OLAOLU on there. Please follow him on Instagram, and so you know what's happening with Crow and From the Shadow and everything else. And thank you so much for joining in today. And I will definitely be back tomorrow. But for now, OLAOLU, thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in today. That was OLAOLU Ogunyemi joining us today on Storytime. Powerful, powerful message, powerful book. And I'm glad that you were here with us. To everybody that joined in, please remember to find his book, this one, Crawl from the Shadow. It is done by OLAOLU Ogunyemi and his brother Joshua. So please do find that one where you buy books. And of course, enjoy it, read some more, and looking forward to the others that will be coming after that. That link there tells you where you can find him, what information you need to find about him. Please do follow that. Thank you so much for joining in today. I appreciate each and every one of you for joining in Storytime today. I wish you nothing but love and hugs from everyone around you. And yes, indeed, warmth with your family. Thank you, Grandma Cindy, Grandpa Dennis. Thank you for joining us. Amanda, Baby Bia, thank you for joining us today. Jen Veda, thank you for joining us. Elisa Clement, thank you for joining us. Marilyn Gibson, thank you for joining us today. Ingrid out in Argentina, Patagonia, and of course our very own also Ingrid right here in Oakland. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am glad you were here on Storytime with us. Please remember to join me tomorrow with another exciting story. The Elephants Come Home is coming back. They're coming back home tomorrow. We'll be reading this one, and of course we'll have our guest author Kim Tomsich joining us tomorrow. So please make a date, 11 a.m. Pacific time, for another wonderful story and another inspiring chat. And of course, if you do want to hear more from OLAOLU Ogunyemi, please go back to this and watch this one, and you will learn all about the great brother he is. Thank you so much for sharing. I absolutely appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here with me today, taking your time to spend it here on Storytime. I do not take that for granted. Much love from me, and I will see you again tomorrow with another exciting story. Thank you so much for joining us. Much love. Bye-bye.
Story time with me. Mr. Lamada, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't live lonely, won't you start all the reading? We just can't wait to be hearing. Brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't live lonely, won't you start all the reading? We just can't wait to be